Victory, shelter.
Hello, Hare Krishna. I would like for everyone who is seeking truth to understand a very, very important topic. That is, how do you cover up the truth and make the truth appear like a lie and the lie appear like the truth? Well, first of all, it's all about how you perceive information. Do you have the proper terms and do you have the proper understanding of who is to be trusted and who is not to be trusted? So the war of propaganda that we're in right now is all about who do you accept as your authority, and the information you're getting, are you able to double check it? Can you find out, get to the bottom of things? So I have come up against a lot of times when I speak about my story, about the truth, about different things that I have discovered over the years. People brandish the word conspiracy theorist. So I did research on this because conspiracy means to plan. It means to conspire, to come together, to plan. And my main reaction is, what, you don't think that intelligent demons plan? Of course they do. Why wouldn't they? Right? But it apparently makes people feel safer to have a Band-Aid to just put over that and say, well, we don't have to believe it because it's been proven by the fact checkers to be a conspiracy theorist, therefore we don't have to acknowledge it. Just remember, there was no such thing as fact checkers or fact checking until the truth came out. The truth that will demolish the New World Order plan for world domination through a propaganda war that all of the uninformed sheeple people swallow. The more informed you are, the more dangerous you are. That is why every good dictator makes sure that their intelligentsia, or the people who have a brain, are sent to Siberia or censored, because the brain needs to lead society, and it has to be clear and it has to be based on truth. And so that's a whole science of espionage and world history, is how do you manipulate the opinion of the masses. And of course, we know that the television has been instrumental. And in Britain, when they invaded India, they were not able to break the culture. Only at the advent of the television was the culture dismantled. So we see the power of the TV screen and all of the stuff they put in it to destroy, undermine, etc., for their purposes, their low purposes. Anyhow, introduction over. I put together an article here that I'm reading from about the history of the word conspiracy theory. For those of you who are tired of getting clubbed over the head with it, you can be armed with the truth behind conspiracy theorist. And all of you people who would like to say the people who are speaking uncomfortable truths are just crazy conspiracy theorists, please also do your research on this, because you may find there's a lot more truth that you don't want to hear than you might be ready for. All right, but to be honest, please do your research. So here it is: brief history of terms used to discredit the existence of satanic ritual abuse. Number 1, conspiracy theory. An excerpt from an article worth reading called Conspiracy Theory is a term that at once strikes fear and anxiety in the hearts of most every public figure, particularly journalists and academics. Since the 1960s, the label has become a disciplinary device that has been overwhelmingly effective in defining certain events off limits to inquiry or debate. It was coined to shut down, ridicule, and otherwise discredit anyone who the criminal demons didn't want talking. Nowadays, uninformed people parrot it all over the place as if just saying so makes the subject untrue. Conspiracy theorists don't have to listen. This term is an immediate and favorite go-to for people who want to deny the truth in its many forms. It originated from the CIA when people began to discuss who was actually behind the murder of JFK. Using this term was designed to belittle and cast doubt on whatever was being spoken. It was weaponized to silence anyone who went against what the media mouthpiece puppets said. If you want to know who rules you, look at who you are not allowed to criticize. Who is the media owned by? Follow the dots. Essentially, the term conspiracy theory is meant to bully people into silence through social pressure so they don't discuss the nefarious plans and schemes of those who rule them. In other words, conspiracy, also known as plans of the criminal demons in positions of power. Evil geniuses don't plan, really? All the synchronized hell in the world is just a mere coincidence, really? In my humble opinion, anyone who uses the term has little to no idea what makes the world go round. Stalin and Lenin called these people useful idiots, but they feel so intelligent and superior using such a great term, poo-poo patooey conspiracy theorist. We are all puppets here if we don't step out in earnest, surrender, and have bona fide guidance. I personally have no difficulty at all accepting the level of evil that is out there because I personally lived it. When the mainstream media says conspiracy, I say, aha, there's got to be some truth to that. When you worship the Prince of Lies, you tend to lie a lot with no compunction. I always wondered how the Satanists miss this. Do they really think it's going to turn out well for them? Number 2, false memory syndrome hoax. I have researched quite a bit about this organization, the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, especially since members of my community have accused me of having false memory, or that my teacher somehow put it all in my head. When I look on the internet, the first dozen or so sites that come up, especially Wikipedia, all describe FMSF as if it were perfectly legitimate. When you dig a little and find out what it's really about and how it was formed, the fact that so many sites are representing it as some real phenomena or respectable organization based on science is outright frightening. And that people buy it is even more frightening. Big tech is all about censorship and spin. Beware. I simply copied and pasted some of this article because it truly represents my own experience. The author describes debilitating flashbacks and trauma responses that pervade her entire life. I've had the similar and same experiences, and there is absolutely no way one can make that up. And furthermore, why would you want to? Like, what would be the motivation, really? And then for ignorant, devious persons to come along and try to utterly shut you up when you are doing your utmost just not to kill yourself or someone else, and then they have the gall to come and deny the very foundation of Kali Yuga. Tell me, do people in Kali Yuga worship Kali? Really? We're not talking about goddess Kali here. We're talking about the personality of quarrel and hypocrisy, aka Satan here. You don't think in the age of Satan, people worship Satan, right? The CIA created a front group called the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, FMSF, to debunk, ridicule, and defame victims and their advocates of satanic ritual abuse, pedophilic sexual abuse, and CIA cult mind control activities. The board members of FMSF reads like a who's who of CIA contractors and consultants. Incredibly, Peter and Pamela Frade, executive directors to the FMSF, along with FMSF founder Dr. Ralph Underwager, have fallen from public grace because they themselves have been involved in the very same abuse that they claim is a result of false memory on the part of the child. The term false memory syndrome was created in 1992 by the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. It has been called a pseudo-scientific syndrome that was developed to defend against claims of child abuse. The FMSF was created by parents who claimed to be falsely accused of child sexual abuse. The false memory syndrome was described as a widespread social phenomenon where misguided therapists cause patients to invent memories of sexual abuse. Research has shown that most delayed memories of childhood abuse are true, based on the research, not the pseudoscientific research they'd like you to believe, but real research shows that most repressed memories, most delayed memories are actually true. In general, it has been shown that false allegations of childhood sexual abuse are rare, with some studies showing rates as low as 1%, 1%, and some studies showing slightly higher. It has been found that children tend to underestimate rather than overestimate the extent of any child abuse experienced. It has been stated that misinformation on the topic of child sexual abuse is widespread and that the media have contributed to this problem by reporting favorably on unproven and controversial claims like the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. So the media is going to take the CIA darling, the FMS, and report on it favorably, or they're going to put it up on their internet searches as something bona fide, when in fact, it's just a CIA front group. You should know that before you start quoting it, all right? The theory of false memory has been used as a defense in court to try and negate abusive criminal behavior. Remember, abusive criminal behavior is called conspiracy. It is satanic ritual. It is based on pedophilia, to steal the energy of the children and use it for world domination, to extract the essence of innocence from a child. Adrenochrome. Think about it. Chrome, your search engine. Why is it called that? Anyhow, I get ahead of myself here. This is an article by someone named Alex Constantine. I found it quite useful. The CIA and Pentagon have formed a partnership in the creation of cults. To be sure, the Association of National Security Alumni, a public interest veterans group opposed to clandestine ops, considers it a primary issue of concern. The Department of Defense has a perceived role in satanic cult activities, which qualify in and of themselves as very damaging exercises in mind control. The smoothing over of the national security state's cult connections is handled by academic experts. The CIA, in fact, has several designations on, the CIA, in fact, has several designates on the FMSF advisory board. They have in common backgrounds in mind control experimentation. Their very presence on the board and their peculiar backgrounds reveal some very heavy, obscured facts about ritual child abuse. The main individuals in the creation of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. FMSF executive directors, Pamela and Peter Freyd, psychiatrists. The Freyds were publicly exposed by their own daughter, Jennifer Freyd, professor of psychology, of child abuse and rape. FMSF founder, Ralph Underwager, psychiatrist, the world's foremost authority on false memory, but in the courtroom is repeatedly exposed as a charlatan. He is a self-confessed pedophile who quotes, "It is God's will adults engage in sex with children." He is the founder of this false memory foundation. So if you find yourself going false memory, just know who you're in bed with, okay? FMSF original board members, Martin Orne, psychiatrist. He is a senior CIA mind control researcher. Imagine that. What could their motives possibly be? Experimenting in hypnotic programming, dissolving memory, and other mind-subduing techniques. Also all on the board here. Very, very interesting. FMSF board member Dr. Harold Leaf, psychiatrist, CIA mind control researcher, experimenting in behavioral modification and hypnotic programming. All very wholesome people who just want to protect innocent parents from those evil children falsely accusing them of child sexual abuse. Oh, those poor parents. They needed the entire CIA special division of mind control experts to help them out. Main founders, Ralph Underwager and Holinda Wakefield. The two main founders are a husband and wife known as Ralph Underwager and Holinda Wakefield. Ralph was a Lutheran pastor and a virtual icon in the Irish Catholic lobby in Dublin, who spent his life defending people internationally who have been accused of child molestation. Such a good man. He is the world's foremost authority on false memory, but in the courtroom, he is repeatedly exposed as a charlatan. He was forced to resign from this illustrious group, that was my own addition, from the False Memory Syndrome Foundation in 1993 because of a remark that he made in an interview in an Amsterdam journal for pedophiles, right? He was interviewed in a pedophile journal. Ha! Okay, in which he remarked that it is God's will for adults to engage in sex with children. I wonder which God he was referring to. He also told a group of reporters in 1994 that scientific evidence has proved that 60% of all women molested as children believe the experience was, quote, good for them. Ralph's wife, Holinda, remained on the board when her husband had to resign. Good wifey. The duo published the journal Issues in Childhood Abuse Allegations, written by and for child abuse skeptics. Defense lawyers for Woody Allen turned to him. Oh, Hollywood hero. He boasts when Mia Farrow accused her estranged husband of molesting their 7-year-old daughter, expert from Pijtica, Amsterdam, pedophile, positive journal. Is choosing, and this is the interviewer asking this question, is choosing pedophilia for you a responsible choice for the individuals? I'm like, what kind of question is that? That's crazy, right? Ralph Underwager. Certainly it is responsible. What I have been struck by as I have come to know more and more and understand people who choose pedophilia is that they let themselves be too much defined by other people. That is usually an essentially negative definition. Pedophiles spend a lot of time and energy defending their choice. I don't think that a pedophile needs to do that. Pedophiles can boldly and courageously affirm what they choose. They can say what they want, and what they want is to find the best way to love, right? I not too long ago saw on Facebook an image, a meme of an adult holding a child's hand. It was a backlit photo, a nice photo, but the caption read, pedophilia is only a persuasion. So this is where they're going with the sexual persuasion. In other words, it's not the worst crime you could possibly do to a child that divides you for the rest of your entire life. No, it's what God wants for you. It was good for you. And it's only a persuasion, right? So this is where the satanic society is heading if we don't turn it around right now, right here with the person in the mirror. Get informed, understand what you're dealing with, kick out the cheating. This is our invitation to you. So I could continue here. There's a whole bunch more all damning stuff. But for my compatriots in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness who dare to bring up the term False Memory Syndrome Foundation, you deserve to be called all the names that these people in this group should be called. They are demons who hurt children, who are probably coming from those backgrounds themselves, who are in denial of their own pain, perpetrating it on others and blaming God for it, turning to the dark one and continuing the cycle of birth and death in a horrifically brutal karmic exchange of the worst sort. We have joined this society, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, to get out of the cycle of painful birth and death. And here are my compatriots, the so-called disciples, followers of his divine grace. When Srila Prabhupada was told that a child was beaten severely by one of the teachers, he said that man should be hanged. Hanged! And now we let them in. And now we cover up for them. And now we call them false memory conspiracy theorists. This is what you're proud to belong to? This represents His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada? You think you're going to get favor from God in your heart, who's omniscient, who knows everything? All right. Sorry, got a little worked up there. Another thing people have said is, well, if all of these criminal things have taken place, why don't you just go approach the authorities? Go to the police. Why haven't you gone to the police? Well, God bless your ignorance. Oh, you innocent little person, you. I'm so glad you live in the bubble of heaven that you do. But I don't. My bubble got popped a long time ago. The perpetrators love law enforcement. They love the courtrooms. They love positions of government. It's their job to cover up the sins of their members, the Masonic lodges throughout the lands, all the nefarious activities of the Satanists, and they make it their business. It's an organized criminal enterprise, and they make it their business to have staff in all of the key departments. So you, if you do speak, you get taken care of. So no, thank you. I will not be going to the authorities. I have no faith whatsoever in the so-called justice system. It's a joke, absolute joke. And unless there are pure Vaishnavas, pure devotees of God sitting on the bench, I will not be bringing my case in front of them because it just re-traumatizes me. And what am I going to do? Try to prove that these things exist while they're invested in denying it does? They're invested in covering it up. And everybody who's invested in ignorance and denial says, yeah, they're the crazy one. No, thank you. I've got a life to live. So, that being said, I did approach the Supreme Authority. I approached Lord Nrsingadev in 2013. I went and I said a prayer, and I'm fully confident that he will take care of everything with the perfect resolution. So you can look forward to them being exposed in the Lord's time. In the meantime, if you have taken shelter of someone who later on you find out is a demon, don't worry, we got you. Read Srila Prabhupada's books. It'll all get better. There's a reason why this happened. We have to be very, very strict in following the instructions of the spiritual master. We have to really keep our association with those who are only interested in pure devotional service, and trust the Lord in our hearts to guide us to the right place. So moving right along, we have covered false memory. We have covered what constitutes proof. We have covered my experiences in my recall. I told you I would go over that. We're going to also be covering what is an offense. So in all cultures, it's very bad to offend your elders, those who are there to support you, and especially the saintly persons. Like if you criticized one of the saints, you would be the worst offender and heretic. And in Vaishnavism, in the worship of Lord Vishnu, it is especially warned that if you criticize a devotee, your spiritual little creeper that you're trying to cultivate is toast. There's something called the mad elephant offense, the hatimata. It just comes through your little garden that you're trying to cultivate your creeper of devotion back to Godhead. And if you offend a devotee, out it goes, squashed to the ground. And we should be very, very careful and not offend devotees. So a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, we had such a close friendship. And when the truth started coming out of my pores, my ears, my stomach, all my everything, and I told her what was going on with me, told her what had happened with Radhanath Swami when I told him about this. She's an honest person. She's married to somebody who is, I guess, in the mind control category of blind followers. But she said, now let's be careful about offenses. Let's not make offenses. because I was speaking about what had happened to me, and how I had looked for shelter and what he said, but you have no proof. And I was confused. And this was even before I had recall about the other stuff. I mean, that video people got so upset about, that's 0.1% of what I know to be true. That's the tip of the iceberg. And yet I had spoken this much. So she said, you have to be careful about offenses, offending devotees. And I said, offense? Offense? What do you mean? What is offense? I have spoken the truth. I have spoken the truth. And she said, good point. So we shouldn't go out of our way to offend devotees. It's a very, 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 very different thing. It's a 180-degree difference if you're talking about an accidental fall down. If there's somebody on the spiritual path who has a fall down and commits some atrocity out of habit, but then who has remorse and who gets back on the path, you don't criticize them because that's offensive. So I'm warned by other devotees, don't commit offenses. And in general, we have to be extremely, extremely careful when on the path of devotion not to commit offenses or aparads against those who are on their path of enlightenment. One who commits an offense at the feet of a devotee or someone who is genuinely trying to advance on their spiritual path is essentially committing spiritual suicide because they are annihilating whatever advancement they've made on their own. So I have been accused of committing offenses to pure devotees by speaking my experiences in the organization and saying that so-and-so did such and such, and that these people at the head are Kali Chelas, they're not pure devotees. So I want to ask you, the audience, a question. What is the difference between seeing no evil, speaking no evil, and enabling abuse to continue? Isn't that also aparad? Isn't that also an extremely dangerous offense, especially towards the most susceptible to abuse, the little children? Isn't that also a great offense to remain silent? In fact, we find in the scriptures that just by remaining silent, the personality of Daksha offended deeply goddess Sati. And for this offense, he lost everything by remaining silent. Or in the court of the Kauravas, the story of the great Mahabharata, Bhishma, Drona, the great seniors of the Kuru dynasty, remained silent at the insult of Draupadi when she was being disrobed forcibly by the Kurus in that assembly hall. And by remaining silent, they became so implicated in that offense to her that they lost everything. So I'm going to ask you, the members, the society called ISKCON, if you consider yourself a Vaishnava and you want to be very careful not to commit offenses, remember that remaining ignorant of the facts, remaining silent, and enabling Kali Chelas, people who wear neck beads and tilak and whose behavior does not represent Srila Prabhupada, the founder, the only reason we have anything to say any good about in our lives, that is an offense. And if you cannot stand the truth, then what are you doing looking for the absolute truth? We have to be very careful in our approach. I myself have prayed very, very much. I will tell you a sequence that was an extremely important sequence for me. Years and years ago, I saw a video of, just one of the persons who had abused me. He was sitting on a Vyasasan and he was being given respect and honor at the temple in India, in Chowpatty, by Radhanath Swami. He had invited this person there to speak. So I hadn't seen that man's face since I was little. And when I saw him now, recently, in the last several years, giving a class, being respected, what did that mean? That meant that all of the people who were listening to him saw him in a position where they could approach him for spiritual advice. In other words, all of them were being put in danger by this miscreant, this evil person. But they didn't know that he was being facilitated by Radhanath. But just seeing this man's face sent me into such a state of agony. I literally fell to the ground on my knees. Somebody had sent me a link and said, hey, did you see this? And I just, oh my God, I was glad I was alone that day because kids were at school, and I just let out a scream. It was like a knife being put through my belly, and I cried out to Krishna, when will he be held accountable? I was so furious inside, like, how is this still happening after all these years? How is this still happening? And the super soul in my heart, I'll never forget, he said, first you accept accountability. I just started sputtering, like, oh, what? But I was the one who was abused. And I was struggling so hard to try to understand what the Lord meant. And only by the grace of my mentor was I able to actually begin the healing process and really pray to Krishna in my heart. What did you mean? First, you accept accountability. And of course, we all understand the nature of karma. So many of you kind, enlightened Vaishnavas have pointed out, well, Mataji, you wouldn't be going through this if it wasn't your karma. Thank you very much for that. Yes, it is my karma. Yes, I have accepted accountability. Yes, thank you very much for your feedback. Of course, the Satanists also use that as they're torturing you, so it's a bit complicated to come to your softness and your healing around it, because as they're raping and torturing you, they're saying, we wouldn't be able to do this to you unless it was your karma, and Krishna knows we're doing it, and he doesn't really exist, so we're doing it to you, and Srila Prabhupada likes it, so we're doing it to you. So these are the mind warps that they would put you through. But yeah, anyways, in general, it's better not to tell people it's their karma when they're suffering. Let them work it out with Krishna in the heart. It's not really big of you to point that out. Okay? Just a little point of interacting with traumatized people. Remaining silent while other devotees are being hurt, raped, tortured, abused, the crime covered up is a big offense. So don't think that you not doing your service, you not protecting the children keeps you neutral or safe. No, you're implicated. Oh yeah. And their big fat offenses are coming on your head for enabling them. It's your onus. It's your job. It's your duty to protect the children, the women, the innocent. And it's your job to protect Srila Prabhupada's spiritual family's integrity. When you see a cheater, first of all, to see cheating, you have to want to see cheating. If you're okay with cheating in your own heart, you're going to be okay with being cheated. Therefore, it begins with your own desire. I don't want to be cheated, Krishna. I want the real thing. Please show me the real thing. And that way you can know that you will be led to the right path, have the right shelter, have the right Sangha. If you maintain association with people who are complicit in the cover-up, naturally their offenses will sit on your head. Naturally you will be covered. Naturally the goal of life to completely cleanse the heart of all dirty things and go back to Godhead will not be achieved. It's going to be very costly to avoid, to deny what has happened. It's time for the truth to come out. And if you want the real thing, it's available. Next, years later, as I had been working through my stuff, I again shook my fist at the sky. When will justice be served? So angry, the cheating that's been continuously going on in the organization. And then Paramatma Uvacha, justice was served. And again, my world just, how could you say that? And what I experienced was justice. How? So much processing, praying, flashbacks, past life sequences, etc. I understood that Krishna is impartial and he delivers us experiences that will bring us closer to him, and that in this instance, justice had been served perfectly. And as I accepted accountability, responsibility, forgiveness, the whole process of healing, I was able to come to the other side of that. And then again, another few years later, I again went in front of my altar and so upset, like, when will they be exposed, Krishna? There's so many people going on their daily lives, and I'm so frustrated and angry. And again, Paramatma in my heart said, when you are free from the same qualities that you criticize others for, then you will be useful. I am waiting for you. I just went, okay, take it out. Whatever it is that's blocking me from doing my save, I take it out, take it out. I want to see myself as I truly am. I want to face the music. I'm ready to accept whatever and anything just so that I can be of service and be useful. Because I know we live in the age of hypocrisy. You're going to point one finger and three fingers are pointing back at you. It's so easy to say they did it and they're the bad guy and they're the cause of my suffering, when in reality, nobody's the cause of your suffering. They're instruments of your suffering. We have created our own bed and we're lying in it. But I'm not trying to expose the demons with this video. I really am not. Krishna's going to expose them. In fact, people have asked me, give me a list of names so that I know who to avoid. And I'm not going to do that because it's dangerous. These people are criminals. They're murderers. They're rapists. They're connected with the highest levels of government. They have a large reach. I'm not going to give you their names and forfeit my safety, the safety of my children. I was already covertly threatened about that. So I have 100% faith that approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead will yield all results. I already know, I have complete faith in the eternal justice system because I've lived it. I know that you don't experience negativity unless you've been negative. And I understand that whole process and I'm at peace with it. What I'm not peaceful with is that the safety organization that was meant to invite people out of the spirit, out of the material world into the spiritual world has been thoroughly corrupted, thoroughly infiltrated to the point where you can't fix it anymore. It's just so interwoven. There's no fixing it anymore. It's not like you can remove the, it's like the cancer has become systemic. You just need to change bodies here. So people who are interested in the real truth and understand, don't put your energy into trying to fix, a stage 4 cancer society. It's not going to happen. Put your energy into your own purification, your own process. You know what to do. If you're serious about your spiritual path, what we have done in our little Sangha is to create a little umbrella trying to invite people out into our invitation to Srila Prabhupada's books. We are calling it purelyprabhupada.com, and you can look at our website. You can see what we've done there. We're, certainly not professional, but we're trying our best. And I hope that comes through. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate your time. There were a few other points I needed to make, about offenses. So I hope you can understand that trying to follow the instruction of Srila Prabhupada, where he said to Nanda Kumar, there are devotees in our midst. There are people in our midst who dress as devotees, but who aren't really devotees, and they need to be found out and cast out, right? So imagine he did that back then. Maybe he didn't have the capacity or wasn't able to back then. But what if he had tried? Then the other devotees would have said, "Oh, you're offending your godbrothers." Because they couldn't understand that their godbrother was actually a Kali Chelya, somebody who was expert, empowered by Kali to completely fool, infiltrate, and ultimately destroy. So we have to be very vigilant. And if we don't have clear enough vision, we need to pray to Krishna, please clear up my vision so I can know what is what and not be misled. And everything begins from that desire to be sincere, desire to be without duplicity. And when Krishna sees your heart, he will put you in the right guidance. Because, somebody asked me very recently, actually this morning, what is the position of somebody who's sincere, who's a good devotee, but who's following a cheater? And all I can say is what Srila Prabhupada said, is that if the leaders are not sincere, then everything is spoiled. And that's what's happened. But even more than that, the anarthas, the unwanted things in our hearts don't come out. Because how can they come out? Because we're following somebody who's full of anarthas, unwanted things in the heart, offenses in the heart, ugly things in the heart. So Krishna, who sits in our heart, he knows our most intimate desire. And when he sees our sincerity, that we want to have a clear channel to hear him in our hearts, externally have a pure representative, he is going to make arrangements for that. So everything begins with your own prayer of sincerity. So don't worry, I have to figure out who's who. Just begin with the person in the mirror, the prayers in the quiet of your own heart, and I am 100% confident that you will be brought to the safe shore. Thank you.